You don't know her? She's Gauri Shah. She's the director at PWC. She just completed her mandate at IFRS Working Party, which I believe you helped curate and set up. We'd like to know a little bit about you. Who is Gauri Shah?
So, like you said, I'm a director at PWC. I set up the practice here in Kenya, working across East Africa about 6 years ago now. Prior to that, I was with PWC UK, where I trained and worked for 10 years before we decided to move back to Kenya. But I guess that's me in my professional life. Otherwise, I'm a mom of 2 little boys that keep me on my toes. But we've really bonded through the pandemic with everyone being at home. They're still quite little, 3 and 7 right at the moment. So that's I guess that's what keeps me busy, and also keeps a reality check on everything that I'm doing.
So tell us a little bit about your actuarial journey.
Okay, so I never actually intended to become an actuary. I think all through going through school, going through high school, I was always very inclined to the medical profession, and wanted to be a dentist. I changed schools for my last 2 years of high school for the A levels. And I was always really good at maths, and I was introduced to actuarial while I was there. In my head, I did my own calculations, obviously incorrectly. I thought, oh, it's a 3-year course versus a 5-year course. It seems easier to do compared to doing dentistry, and that's kind of how I ended up applying for actuarial science. And what then pushed me further is my university gave me a scholarship. I studied in the UK at City University, Cass Business School. So I pursued my course there. And of course, as I learnt more about it, I learnt about the professional exams that we also have to give. But I was quite determined. I got all of my exemptions while I was pursuing my bachelor's course. While I was in my second year, I was lucky to get a summer internship with PwC UK, and they offered me a job after that. So I went back there following completion of my degree, and then I completed the rest of the professional exams shortly after joining PwC. So I had a relatively, I guess, easy path into the course, and I was very grateful and thankful of having started my career at PwC UK. Like I said, I stayed there for 10 years before we decided to move back to Kenya. So yeah, that's kind of how my journey has been. But I'll be absolutely honest, I'm still so interested in the medical field. So often my late night reading is not actuarial work or IFRS 17 or IFRS 9 as people might think, but it typically is medical journals and the latest research that is going on in there.
That's quite interesting. So how has the journey been while setting up the IFRS Working Party for people who don't know how it started?
So when I came into this country, again, I didn't intend to carry on working as a professional. PwC approached me, and I was also interested. So that's kind of how I carried on in my actuarial profession. And at the time that I came, it was only 6-7 years ago, but there were fewer actuaries than we are now. I mean, it's phenomenal how we've grown. It's fantastic. So I quickly got to know those few actuaries, and I've always been one that has been involved in the wider professional initiatives, even in the UK. So one fine day, I'd been thinking about it for some time, and one fine day I called Moses and I said, I think we really need an IFRS Working Party. Particularly because it's complex. We don't have many actuaries and practitioners here, and we can really make a difference. And I said, I need you on board. He was at Liberty, I think, at the time, and I called a few others. I still remember Dennis Moria and Seth, and I called them, and they were all on board relatively quickly. And then between us, we thought about the few other people that would also be instrumental in the working party. And we really wanted doers, not people who came to learn because we were learning in the process anyway. It's not like we had all the answers. So that's kind of how it started. Moses helped me formalize it. We got the sort of task approval. And we really hit the ground running. It was a very active working party. We used to meet regularly.
When was it?
So this was, I would say, the early part of 2017. I think we met for the first time as a group probably around March, April, maybe April 2017, after the busy season. And we set the pace from there on. So I've been with the Working Party for about 3.5 years. So it was obviously time. It was obviously time to hand the baton.
So how would you assess your time there?
So the time has not been without challenges, but I think the core team that we had was phenomenal, and we really actually worked really well together, and we put in the time. I would probably say the proudest moment for me was what we achieved in 2019. And as a team, I mean, the team morphed a lot. In fact, the pioneers that helped me set it up were no longer the active members. We had a lot of really fantastic individuals, younger actuaries, just similar to how you've probably seen, the profession has grown, and we have so many young, enthusiastic actuaries. And in that year, we really cracked through a lot of the complexity of IFRS 17 with simple tools. And as a working party, we were actually able to kind of think through what would be appropriate guidance, draft some of that, which is still work in progress. But importantly, we had subgroups that actually tried to develop simple models for all of the measurement models under IFRS 17. And I think that was really, really phenomenal. Helped the understanding for everyone there, but we were also able to showcase that at our actuarial convention in 2019. So really proud of the work that we've achieved, and the team that has dedicated their time to it.
So, what, in your own assessment, where are we with IFRS adoption in the country?
So it's a mixed bag. It is really a mixed bag. But if I was to talk about the local insurers, we are trailing behind, and significantly so. And I'll tell you why. As PWC, we did an IFRS 17 survey, EMA-wide, late last year. And what was really telling from the responses was those that were further progressed in their journey thought that they didn't have enough time to implement. And they were not all large players. Some of them are smaller players, part of a bigger group. So, it's not to say that large players have more to do compared to small ones. But those that had not started, and by not started, probably even not done the minimum capacity building, thought they would be done in a year. And what is really telling about it is once you get your hands dirty and start to understand what is really required of IFRS 17, only then you realize the scale of the work that is coming your way. And the early movers in our industry, both the sort of international players that are headquartered outside of Kenya and those that are local players that have started on the journey, would actually echo those sentiments. And the way to really make the journey easy for you is to start early. Otherwise, you have the combination of consultants and auditors telling you what is to be done, as opposed to you being able to have the time to make decisions for yourself. And IFRS 17 is complex, let's be honest. People draw comparatives to IFRS 9. IFRS 9 for banks was equally challenging, but IFRS 9 affected one line item on your financial statements. IFRS 17 changes your entire financial statements. It's probably 10, 12 times more complex than IFRS 9. So, our insurance industry really does need to move, but also collaborate in the process. The issues are not unique to one insurance company. They are industry-wide issues. And I think, what we are doing through TASK, what we are doing in collaboration with ISPAC, etc., is really trying to help the industry move along. But the insurers also need to take their responsibility towards this seriously.
Okay. Are you going to pass the baton with a sense of satisfaction, or do you think there is much you think that could have been accomplished?
So I definitely passed the baton with a sense of satisfaction. I spoke about how, especially 2019 was a phenomenal year of the progress that the Working Party made. 2020, the combination of COVID and we didn't really have a convention. We didn't do much, but there is still much to be done. There is still much to be done. So, David doesn't have an easy ride there. And I think the challenge is perhaps also a little bit different, which is, how do we get the industry prepared? You already asked me about whether or not we have enough time and whether, the industry is progressing well. So David actually now has a slightly different challenge in terms of how do we not only get the actuarial profession ready and at a level, but also how do we use that then to push the industry along. So there is still much to be done, but people do really view this as a point of seeking guidance, clarification, setting the tone for what is the minimum level of work that is required, helping digest the guidance as well. So the IFRS 17 implementation date has been pushed back a number of times, but I think what we're dealing with here is really, what I would describe as part of our culture. We typically don't plan ahead. We like to do things to the wire. I think as an industry we've gotten better with bringing in lots of different professionals into insurance companies and the various bodies that also help represent. But I also think that one of the things we're dealing with here is insurance companies actually have some fairly big problems to deal with even before they think about IFRS 17. The size of our market, the issues with penetration, the issues with pricing, the issues of distribution channels. They're much more pertinent business issues that actually our insurance companies have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, that, almost things like IFRS 17 and even other such regulatory and accounting requirements typically get pushed all the way until they become urgent and important, rather than starting to act on them as soon as they are important.
So what's next?
So what next, John? I think from an actuarial society perspective, I'm very passionate about the profession, collaborating, sharing knowledge and such. So you can expect to see me continuously being involved in our initiatives, and even for the IFRS Working Party itself. In as much as I've handed the baton to David, I still remain a very active member of that working party and expect to do so, especially as we transition into the implementation date. But who knows? I mean, there are many other things that I have been thinking about. For me personally, we do a lot of work in the banking space. We do a lot of work around the credit risk space. So maybe that's where we'll go next: actuaries in banking and credit risk management and such, or maybe something else altogether. Maybe actuaries in corporate environments and the role that we have to play there. So I think watch this space and let's see how it evolves and where it takes me.